Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thank you for joining us. We are live streaming here at the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We do this every weekday. If it's your first time watching, you've got a lot of things you can watch there on the Fox 12 Oregon app, a lot of different conversations, segments, things that we cover here throughout the afternoon. Right now, though, we are talking about avian influenza. There was a case found in Wallowa County in Northeast Oregon, and it's something that I think a lot of people should be aware of and understand exactly what's going on with there, and we want to give you some advice too on what to watch out for, particularly too if you do own birds or livestock, but even for the general public. So that's a lot of things I just threw at you right there. We're going to find out the answers to that because we've got our state veterinarian from the Oregon Department of Agriculture, Dr. Ryan Scholz, joining us. And Ryan, Doctor, thank you very much for being here. You know, I appreciate your time in going through this. And you know, to start off, I think just for everybody to have a basic definition and understanding of where we're at, could you give us the definition of avian influenza?
Yeah, so avian influenzas are actually kind of a general category of influenza viruses. They're influenza A viruses, very similar to the human flu virus, and this is kind of the same family. What we're specifically talking about right now is the H5N1 highly pathogenic avian influenza virus. So one specific strain of that virus that causes pretty severe symptoms and illness and often leads to rapid death in poultry. It can, in very rare cases, also be spread to other animals and as well as humans.
So something that this specific one, this highly this highly pathogenic one that was found here, this is one that we've known about for years, right? This isn't a brand new case or anything.
Yeah, so we've been seeing kind of ongoing cases since about May of 2022 here in Oregon. Typically, we see them fairly seasonally. The virus, the reservoir of this virus is wild waterfowl, wild ducks and geese, particularly dabbling ducks, so the teals, mallards, those type of ducks. And so we really see cases spill over out of that reservoir into domestic poultry, usually around this time of year when the waterfowl are starting to migrate through our state, heading south for the winter. Interactions of those birds with domestic poultry leads to cases. And then in the last year or two, we've seen some other sporadic cases related to cats eating raw pet food that was carrying the virus and some other things. But predominantly, usually the fall is the time of the year we see these cases. So this was the first case of the year of the fall season that we were reporting.
And for this particular case, could you give us kind of the details of what happened there and what's going on?
Yeah, so we typically don't release a lot of details on these cases just to protect the owners, but we actually have 4 cases we've confirmed now. Just in the last, just yesterday afternoon, we confirmed 3 more. So we've actually got 3 cases now in Wallowa County. So the first one was reported by an owner out in Wallowa County. It was a backyard flocks. All 4 of the cases we've had so far have been smaller backyard flocks. All 4 of them have had some sort of interaction with wild ducks or wild geese, or they have domestic ducks on the farm that potentially interact. And in all of those cases, the owners noted that the birds were dying and fairly rapidly. And that's pretty common for these cases.
So that's something that, you know, I guess walking through that, you know, for some of these people, people who may have birds, livestock, or whatever it may be, you know, what are some important things for those people who do own domestic ducks or chickens, you know, poultry like that? What should they be watching out for?
Yeah, so in terms of symptoms, oftentimes the only thing that you see is rapid death. Often, especially in chickens and turkeys, they go from being fairly normal appearing to dying very, very quickly. Sometimes you will see some symptoms, oftentimes some respiratory symptoms, coughing, sneezing, or neurologic type symptoms. So oftentimes they'll be circling or looking straight up in the air. We call that stargazing. Or they'll just be depressed. They kind of hunker down on their roost, don't want to move, don't really want to pick their head up like they normally would. But usually those symptoms are fairly short-lived in those birds. In waterfowl, it can be a little more variable. Ducks and geese are a little more resistant to this virus. And so oftentimes we'll see more symptoms in those birds as it takes a little longer for the virus to act in those birds and have any effect on them.
What are some things that people can do to protect their animals from this kind of exposure?
Yes, there's a lot of things. We kind of group all of the things we can do to protect animals from just diseases in general under the kind of the general term of biosecurity. But in this disease particularly, it's really about maintaining separation between domestic poultry and wild ducks and geese. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. That can be, actual physical exclusion, right? Not letting your chickens, your ducks, your geese interact with wild ducks and geese. Often that can be difficult on some of these small farms where you may have a pond or different things, but really trying to maintain that. Almost probably the majority of cases we see are those scenarios where someone has ducks, they have chickens, they may have other species of birds, and they have a pond or they have a creek, and that is attracting those wild ducks and geese in, and that's where that exposure happens. We do see some cases, a little bit less common, but where that interaction between the wild ducks and the domestic poultry is aided a little more by the human intermediaries, by the caretakers of those animals, whether it be going to the park or to a lake or a wildlife refuge, coming home, not cleaning those boots off and going and cleaning your chicken coop, things like that, where you can carry it home on your clothes, on your boots. Or we've had a couple cases where the owners of the poultry were duck or goose hunters, harvested some wild ducks or geese, brought those home, cleaned them on their back patio, rinsed that patio off, the water went through their chicken coop and ended up infecting their birds that way. So it really, though, is about that separation, maintaining that separation between our backyard poultry and wild ducks and geese at the end of the day.
So just trying to keep, that separation between those. Something that just brings it to mind now, too, just to think about this, with these cases that we're seeing there in Wallowa County, is there any concern for the commercial industry side of things when it comes to poultry?
So there's always concern for the farms, right? It's not a consumer facing concern necessarily, but a concern in terms of protecting those poultry. Yes, those commercial poultry farms, we work really closely with them. I think I've had conversations with just about all of our commercial producers in the last week or two about it. Every year this time of year when we start seeing wild birds migrating, they're taking a lot of extra steps to protect those birds, just like we encourage smaller producers to take as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so you mentioned this here earlier, but or kind of touched on this, but I just want to cover this question too. Is there any concern that this is something that could be passed to humans?
It is possible. There have been cases documented. We had one case in Oregon last year of a employee on a commercial farm that was the farm was infected with avian influenza virus, and one of those employees unfortunately did contract the virus. It was a very mild case. We do a lot of work to prevent that. We work really closely with Oregon Health Authority, with the local county public health authorities. Anytime, part of the reason we really want owners to report when they suspect something may be going on is so we can help them determine that, but also we're providing them PPE, protective equipment, when we come out. We're trying to work with them to make sure that they have what they need to protect themselves. We always encourage poultry owners, or really any livestock owners, if you have an animal that's sick or an animal that dies, isolate it, protect yourself, wear gloves. If one dies, grab it through the garbage bag, wash your hands. It takes just some of those basic protections to protect yourself, and then report those cases that seem suspicious, so we can help you figure out if it is something we need to be worried about.
Yeah, talking about the reporting of cases too, is there anything the general public can do to help you in this work of identifying, where some of these cases are and maybe preventing some of the spread of it if possible?
Yeah, so people who own poultry is really kind of the target there. If poultry owners have concerns, if they've, lost a significant portion of their birds, they've got a lot of birds that are sick, certainly reporting those to our hotline. We will work with them. Every one of those calls gets reviewed by one of our veterinarians. If we think there is risk, we will send a veterinarian out to collect samples, get those samples tested. There's no cost ever in those cases. It's all done for free to those owners. Really, the priority is identifying where we have those cases, and then helping those owners to deal with that, with those cases. and to reduce the risk that we're spreading virus to other poultry or to potentially even worse to other species or to people.
Well, anything else that you think is important for people to know, or at least where they can go to find out more information?
Yeah, so we have quite a bit of information on our website. That website's just oda.direct/AI or avian influenza. Either one of those will get you there, depending how you want to type that. And then if people have concerns, we do have a hotline that poultry owners can call to report suspicious cases, and that phone number is 503-986-4711.
Great. So people can get a hold of you there if they do see some of that. And
Yep.
Thank you very much, for joining us
Absolutely.
here too, just to walk through this. It's important, I think, for everybody to know and just understand what's going on. And because it can be a very scary thing if you see something like that, avian influenza. But to understand what's happening, I think that's really important. So, Doctor, thank you very much for joining us here on Fox 12 Now. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And for everybody watching, again, this is, as I mentioned, Fox 12 Now. We live stream here at the Fox 12 Oregon Newsroom. We've got plenty more coming up here throughout the afternoon, anytime between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. as well. If there's breaking news, I will have that for you. But as of right now, at 2 o'clock, we will have the Fox 12 Weather Podcast video edition for you. So that's going to be coming up, and plenty more here throughout the afternoon as well. I will talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.